Some problems aren't just difficult, they're messy, they're complex, and they almost always involve people. So how in the world do you solve them? Today, we're going to explore a really powerful framework called design thinking. It's a method that completely shifts our perspective to find solutions that are innovative, effective, and, most importantly, deeply human.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking at the kinds of problems that need the special approach. Then we'll break down what it means to think like a designer, walk through the 3 key phases of the process, and see how it all works on a real-world challenge. And then we'll wrap up with a toolkit you can actually use yourself. All right, first up, solving the unsolvable. We're not talking about simple puzzles here, the kind with one right answer. We're talking about the big, thorny, systemic issues, what we can call mysteries.
Really think about it for a second. How do you tackle a problem where the data is all over the place and any little thing you do could have massive ripple effects? Your traditional, linear, step-by-step problem solving, it just doesn't cut it when your main variables are unpredictable human beings.
Let's take food waste, for example. A staggering 30% of perishable food is lost before it even gets close to a store shelf. Now, that's not just a logistics puzzle you can solve with a better spreadsheet. No, it's a huge systemic mystery that connects farmers, drivers, retailers, and big market forces. It's the perfect kind of challenge for a new way of thinking. So what is that new way of thinking? Well, that brings us right into our second section, thinking like a designer. This is really the core framework that lets us start to unravel those mysteries.
At its heart, design thinking is all about putting people first. It actually started in product design, that intuitive way your smartphone just works, but now it's being used to redesign massive systems and even social programs. So what actually makes this mindset so different and, frankly, so powerful? Well, it all begins with empathy. This is the absolute opposite of starting with a spreadsheet. It means you have to get out of the office and into the real world to genuinely understand the emotional and practical needs of the people you're trying to help. The why behind what they do is way more important than the what.
Second, it's built for those mysteries we talked about. A traditional business approach needs clean data and predictable outcomes before it even gets started. Design thinking, though, it dives right into the ambiguity. It's all about finding meaning and opportunity inside all that messy, real-world information. Third, and this is so crucial, is iteration. The goal here is absolutely not to be perfect on your first try. Instead, you have to adopt a learner's mindset. The whole philosophy is to make mistakes faster, which just means you experiment, you learn, and you adapt in these really quick cycles. Failure isn't a setback, it's actually valuable data. And finally, prototyping. This isn't about waiting around for some perfect, detailed plan. It's about making your ideas tangible and doing it fast. A prototype could be a simple sketch, a role-playing exercise, even a basic app. The whole point is to make your concept real, so you can see what works and what doesn't long before you invest millions of dollars and years of work. Okay, so we've got the mindset down. Now for section 3, the innovation playbook. Let's look at the actual process designers follow. The whole process is broken down into 3 phases. Inspiration, where you really immerse yourself in the problem. Ideation, where you generate a huge range of solutions. And implementation, where you test and build. Now, what's really important to get here is that this is not a rigid step-by-step process. It's more of a fluid system. You're constantly looping back, learning, and refining as you go. The inspiration phase is really just empathy in action. You go out and you observe real people in their own environments. You're kind of like a detective looking for their unmet needs. The deep-seated problems they might not even be able to explain themselves. This is where the most powerful insights are almost always hiding. Next up is ideation. You take all those rich observations and you just start generating ideas. And I mean a lot of them. The rule here is quantity over quality, at least at the beginning. You ignore constraints, you get creative, and you start pulling together all that raw data from the field into powerful, actionable concepts. And finally, implementation. This is where the rubber meets the road, where abstract ideas become real. You take your most promising concepts, build those low-cost prototypes, and get them in front of actual users for feedback. The whole goal is to test, learn, and refine until you have a solution that actually creates real value in the real world. So that's the theory. For our 4th section, let's see how this whole thing comes together. We're going to apply this playbook to that big, messy problem of food waste we talked about at the beginning. So we'd start with inspiration, asking what is the situation right now?
A design team would use a tool called journey mapping. They would literally trace the entire path of, let's say, a crate of tomatoes, all the way from the farm to the store shelf. And they'd be interviewing and observing every single person who touches it to find their specific frustrations, their pain points. And this table gives you a perfect snapshot of what they'd find. For farmers, you can just feel that stress of transport delays or sudden price drops. For retailers, it's the financial gut punch when food arrives damaged or spoils on the shelves. You see how these aren't just logistical issues? They are deeply human and economic problems at every single step.
Okay, now let's jump to ideation and ask, what if? A traditional approach might just suggest, better schedules or new pricing models, basically just tweaking the system we already have. But a design thinking team, really fueled by those human pain points, might come up with something radical, like a real-time freshness tracker that uses sensors and blockchain so everyone can see exactly what's going on. And finally, implementation, where we ask, what works? Instead of a massive, high-risk, expensive rollout of this new tracker system, the team would do what's called a learning launch. They just test the concept in a really small, controlled environment, maybe with only 2 farms and 10 stores, to learn, adapt, and prove the idea has value before they even think about scaling it up. And that brings us to our final section, your toolkit for change. Let's recap the key concepts you can take away and apply, whether it's for a class project, a student group, or maybe a challenge you see in your own community. So, here's the bottom line. Always start with real empathy and map out the user's journey. Brainstorm without judging before you narrow things down. Build simple prototypes to make your ideas real, and then test them with small, affordable experiments. This is an incredibly powerful set of tools for anyone who's looking to create change. And this quote really gets to the heart of it. This isn't about some experts in a boardroom telling people what to do. It's a method that actually empowers the people who are closest to the problem to become co-creators of the solution. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about innovation. So I'll leave you with this question. Look around you, on your campus, in your community, in your field of study. What complex, human-centered mystery is out there, just waiting for you to apply this new way of thinking?